Trevor Hall,
Yeah.
Chief Architect at Salesforce over Tableau Next, Tableau Cloud. I got confused when you were telling me of all the things
I'll
that
try
you're
to explain it.
responsible for.
Yeah. So lead architect, chief architect over all the Tableau products, all the analytics products at Salesforce. So that includes Tableau and Tableau Cloud, Tableau Server, desktop, mobile, Tableau Next, and everything that we're doing there. All the agentic analytics, including like in CRMA, operational analytics. The list goes on and on. Data cloud reports as well. So
That's astounding. An architect to behold.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but thank you.
Well, I'm really glad to have this conversation then.
I'm very excited.
I feel honored. So the main question that I'm trying to drive here at this year's Tableau conference is to help myself and those who might be watching get to the bottom of this question of where is Tableau at within the broader landscape, right? Because within 3 years ago, there was a very fixed kind of dynamic around the ecosystem of traditional BI, and that has just completely shifted.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's just wondering now, what do I do with my Tableau stack?
Yeah.
Do I augment? Do I integrate? Am I going to take my vibe-coded dashboard and use Tableau as a publishing engine?
Yep.
Am I going to use MCP to overload the context, or am I going to have an agent in a sandbox that queries the APIs? Right, like all of the puzzle pieces are on the table all of a sudden. Yeah. So in your view, where does Tableau fit?
No, that's the $1 million question that everybody here at the conference has been asking. I think because I think there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of puzzle pieces. But as I put together a puzzle, I always put up the cover of the box in front of me so I can kind of follow along what to do. That box is blank for a lot of people, and so I think Tableau has been many things to many organizations for a long time, but I think at the end of it, it is a helpful place to be able to see and understand data, and a trusted place to see and understand data. And what I mean by that is a lot of people have put a lot of work in making published data sources, their semantic data models. They've been applying their governance, and they've had it as a central source of truth for, traditionally their dashboards and visualizations and everything like that. I think AI, one of the things that AI brings is unpredictability of the future. It's kind of hard to see where this is going to all pan out in the next 5 to 6 years, but I would say the road that I do believe will be followed is one that that trusted layer of governance, semantics, and control and governance is becoming increasingly important. So on one hand, that means the role of everybody, kind of like our data fam, really is becoming exponentially more critical to an organization, because AI is introducing new UIs basically for this. So whether it's through Claude and you want to integrate over MCP, whether it's through ChatGPT is the same way, whether it's through Tableau Agent directly in the experiences themselves, it really becomes it lowers the bar to be able to create dashboards, to be able to understand data. You can just ask questions of it, but at the same time, the only way that you're going to do that, at least in our experience, in our customers' experience, is if you can trust the system that you're doing that from, and that trust has already been established with Tableau. So, in my mind, to answer your question directly, is I think it's a combination of everything that you said. Is it augmentation? Is it replacing dashboards with conversational analytics? Is it building new MCP services on top of Tableau MCP to be able to get that governance and semantics into different new experiences? I think the answer is so far yes to a lot of those things. Depends on the use cases, depends on what you're trying to achieve. But at the end of the day, Tableau's been trying to achieve kind of one simple goal since we were founded, which is there's this data discovery period where you find your insight and you want to do something with it. We want to bring that time to zero. And we think AI is kind of the next big stepping stone for that, which is where our platform has always been part of that. So in my mind, and I'm a little biased, I've been with Tableau for 10 years, so I think it's, one of the best products on the market, but I do think it's customers are finding a lot of success in knowing that their AI can be built on the data platforms they've already established and they've been working hard to be able to establish and retain. And really, it's just a matter now of exposing new experiences that are agentic to a broader set of people, because it now lowers the barrier. It further democratizes data access.
Yeah, those thresholds have been lowered even further. Yeah,
absolutely.
And on that importance of the governance layer that you mentioned up front,
yeah.
I'm going to weave together various of the conversations that I've been having prior to you. So at True to the Core, I was talking to Recker and about the broadening of the competitive landscape.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I remember the question.
Right. And the answer was that yes, it's a bigger, broader competitive landscape, but that means that the pie is getting bigger as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then I was speaking to Christian Saavedra, data dev, about what would it look like if we were to just remove Tableau.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to Jonathan about the importance of the data model, the object model, and just like, to me, there's so much that's been done with relationships. This morning I was in a session about the composable data sources.
Right.
That's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
If we were to just suddenly attempt to remove all of that structure,
Right.
to remove all of that scaffolding upon which many organizations have built their entire platform for analytics, it's like taking 30 years step back. Yeah.
No, 100%. And that's a common question is, a lot of, some customers are coming to us saying like, I have Snowflake and I have Claude.
Why don't I just...
If you put them together, doesn't that just replace Tableau? And the answer is like very reasonable. Like I see where you're coming from, but exactly that's the answer, which is there's more than just data access. In fact, that's usually not the reason that you bought Tableau. And maybe, Tableau is great at, federating data access across into a single place through data modeling. But that's exactly the point. It's like, yes, through our data modeling stack and through our connectivity stack, you're able to bring together disparate sources of data. I've yet to meet a company or any organization
that has it all
their
in
data.
one place.
Yeah, it's like, everybody can be proud of migrating to a data platform. And I'm like, where do you do budgeting? And they're like, Excel.
Right.
It's like, oh, great. How do you govern that on top of that? And so all of those things are true. And I think there's also so many subtleties of the Tableau product that are not always seen. There was a perfect example that was told to me by one of our engineering leaders yesterday where, I won't say the company name, but there's a company and they have a number of remote sales centers. And all of those sales centers were saying the same thing, which is, why do you keep giving me this inventory that's not selling? You keep giving me this inventory, it's not selling. We are selling 0 of this inventory. And the distribution center was like, I don't know, we're going off of our queries. They started to implement Tableau and realized that through their joins of inventory and sales, they were removing the inventory that wasn't selling. So they could see small sales, but if it was 0, it turned to null. That null was stripped out of the join. In Tableau, that null is there as a 0 value.
We need to restock.
Yeah, and it's subtleties. There's 1,000 subtleties like that, which is where you don't want your agents to make those same simple mistakes, which you avoid by having, well curated data models, thoughtful, joins and relationships between them, optimize, data extracts for, these things at scale and
right. I mean, the expense just alone of going
there's
straight
the
to
expense.
Snowflake
Oh, yeah.
of the paper compute is astounding.
Especially when you think about what agents will do. Agents are going to scale data access to a broader set of people because
they're very verbose by default.
Yes, and also that. And then once you start to add in all these thinking steps that you're starting to get with some of the newer models, they're, it's not just one query, it's like 6 queries in a row sometimes to be able to put together a more thoughtful answer.
You just run through 100K in tokens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tokens and, maybe, warehouse compute, whatever it happens to be. So there's all of these elements, I think, layered on top of each other, which is why I think people have invested in BI in the first place, and where I think Tableau particularly shines because it helps kind of control all of these things and still enables agents to answer this question just as dashboards were able to, just as humans have always been able to. So
yeah. And when agents do answer that question, they're going to be going through that object model, the data source, the composable data source. So I went to Chitali's session earlier this morning about the composable data source.
Yeah.
Long time coming.
Yes, I'm so excited that we're finally able to tell everybody we've done it.
Yeah.
We've answered the top most requested thing for 15, 16 years. So
Right.
Yeah,
and in Action, we take a very human-centric approach to things, and we have this philosophy called the green lens.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to say, oh, red lens Tableau, it took them 15 years to get composable data sources, they're slow. The green lens side of that very same coin is that there's a depth of engineering and a depth of precision and a depth of ease of use that I saw in the session this morning.
Yes.
That doesn't just come about.
That's right.
Right? Along with the performance and the scalability and the ability to get those assets out to tens of thousands of people with accuracy. They showed me that I could replace one of the elemental data sources that's now inside of a composable data source.
Yep.
The person who's using the composable data source presses refresh, they have the new thing, right? So tell me a little bit about the engineering involved and the architecture involved,
Yeah.
and why it's important that it took so much time to get composable data sources out.
Yeah, so that's a great question and a complicated one. I think part of it is, and you were alluding to it a little bit, which is everything we do in this Tableau way, which is, we think about both what's being asked for and also what the users need in that whole journey. So there's that whole element, which is like, what is the exact and precise experience that people would expect out of Tableau that is absolutely intuitive? Like, and this resonates with me, and I'm sure a lot of people listening, hopefully, which is, first time I used Tableau, the reason I started to work at Tableau is I was interviewing, I downloaded the software, and I had this data problem that I've been grappling for like 9 months at work. And it took me about 15 minutes to solve in Tableau, and I'd never used the product. And I'm like,
Zing.
I am going to be a part of this, whatever this is.
Right.
And that's been the design philosophy that we take on everything that we do. And composable data sources, because of its demand, is like kind of had an extra attention. Like, let's do it right. So there's that element of it. The other element too is just architecturally, there's like this center of Tableau's code. And it's really where, VisQL transcends with, it's where connectivity transcends with data modeling and like the third vector is just like the visual UI. And so when you create this visual spec, it has to turn into basically SQL or whatever the query happens to be. And it goes through this part of Tableau. And so one of the beauties of Tableau is how well everything, like VisQL is a grammar that allows you to create a visualization of basically anything. And on top of that now too, a data model that anybody can imagine. And so when you combine these two things, it just takes a level of precision to get just right, and also to make sure that we don't have impact on something else that people love that we've introduced in that same space for the last 20 years. So it is the most complicated part of Tableau. It's the most cared for part of Tableau, and it's the most revered part of Tableau, so it does take a long time. And on top of that too, there was a lot of years of just preparation. So, multi-object data sources was the kind of the first step into that. Actually, before that, it was, data federation. It was 2016 or 17. Mm-hmm. And then the second phase of that was our object model, so multi-object support, logical objects. And then the next part of that was
multi-fact tables.
Multi-fact tables. We had headless BI. So VisQL Data Services was a big part of that. So we had to kind of adjust a lot of that code. And then that led us into a lot easier place of being able to then introduce composable data sources. Just, I think we all wish it could have been earlier, but that was the ride that we kind of went on to get here.
And so there's this kind of recurring phenomenon that old resistance becomes new support.
Yeah.
Right. So now that old resistance, because you had to unlock these sort of preparatory steps.
Yeah.
In order to get to composable data sources, now they're unleashed.
Yeah.
Which means that there should be a new kind of surge of productivity in future enhancements. What do you see coming next?
Yeah. So in terms of the data modeling capabilities, what we usually find is this unlocks the creativity of customers. And so like, for example, we've all been, say, a little handcuffed with data blending, for example. And so now we're going to start to, I've been having lots of customer conversations this week about, can we move to composable data sources? The answer is usually yes. And so then that's like, okay, can I do this and can I do that? So it starts to bring in these new concepts of how we want to model data. I think it's also, it brings up, kind of go back to AI, which is now how do we think about headless analytics and how do agents want to interact with over these things? And so I think we'll see this, as we do with most of our product development, is we have something like this, we get all the feedback, we let customers be creative, we take that in as feedback, and then we kind of move forward with like the next big thing, and that's what I think the process will be that we go through.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it seems like to harken back to the earlier conversation about the importance of Tableau as this governance layer.
Yeah.
It seems as though all of this work then becomes a real strength when it comes to integrating AI.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think so. I mean, one of the things that comes up a lot with AI is nobody wants to release an agent over the database and let it go wild. And so what that means is you want to put in constraints, you want it to be scoped to specific models, you want it to have that governance so it will automatically inherit, it acts as the user who's asking the questions. And all of those things come true, and you also want observability and testability and things like that. And so I think one of the aspects is, especially with composable data sources, is you can give access to one model to an agent, but now it can be almost a graph of models, if that's what you want, or a graph of data sources. And so you've given that scope to the agent, you can control it. And then on top of that too, we'll be introducing things to be able to test it and give some more observability into it. We showed some of that at Keynote with the command center. And so this whole space is very much of how can we give all the configuration, the tools, the controls, but also, agent administrators or knowledge architects or just like, the people who are building the Tableau assets don't have to worry about governance and security because that part hopefully has already been done. Although with agents, maybe it takes one more audit to double check that everything is tightened up, but it's the same security policies and the same platform that you've always been using and trusted. So
Got it. Okay, and so now to shift gears to just something completely new to me.
Yeah.
The knowledge graphs.
Yes.
Right. So I know nothing more than what I saw at the keynote.
Okay.
What are these things?
What is going on there? Yes. So I think as we've all been learning more about AI, I think the one thing that's becoming more and more common is they are more effective, especially with the newer models, the better prompts that they have. So what comes down to, like, it ends up being a very simple problem. It just, what probably, those prompts are the knowledge that AI uses or agents use to be able to come up with whatever answers they need. Now, what we're finding too is the more creative we can be with that prompt engineering effectively, and the more information we can provide in a smaller window, the more effective these agents become. So
the smaller window is key.
Smaller window is key. Yeah,
Key.
you can tell it too much, and it will just confuse itself. And,
Right.
Yeah.
And you're blowing yourself out of the water in various ways there. Not only the more context you give the thing, you surpass the threshold, it gives you a worse answer,
Absolutely.
but you're also spending a lot more money.
It's a lot more money, and they're slower.
Yeah.
So they have more to chew on, and it just takes longer, and we've proven that time and time again. And so the other part of it too is, we started obviously with semantics. It's been a space of ours for a long time, and we knew that there's a ton of value of finding a way to give agents semantic knowledge, because one of the most common use cases is like, I'm in a dashboard. Dashboards are fixed to the amount of questions we designed them for. And there's always the third and fourth question that isn't answered in the dashboard.
Exactly. Let's go.
The obvious thing is like, let's have an agent there that can just help answer those types of questions. And to build trust in that, we also know that the measures and dimensions and custom calculations and the metrics that you define are the ways that we want to answer those. So we want those to be deterministic. We don't want the LLM to guess on whatever calculation it is. But then on top of that, it's like, okay, knowing what to do with those answers so you can actually make a decision is the obvious next thing that people want to do. And today they leave Tableau, they go collaborate with their team and try to figure out what to do. Okay, I have this insight, what do I do with it? That's additional knowledge outside of semantic model traditionally, right? That's more of like this process intelligence. Like, okay,
Ontology.
It becomes an ontology. My inventory is going down. I know as a human that usually means I have to transfer inventory from one store to the other. How does the agent?
And that's an implicit business rule that
Absolutely.
I just carry as tribal knowledge in my head.
Exactly.
Right.
It's never written down.
Right.
And it's usually trained and sometimes inferred over the years of me working here.
Right.
And on top of that too, it's then, okay, while that might be true, I have to get something to ship inventory to one space, make sure that they can make it to the other space. I need to get people to move things into a truck securely, make sure that the truck is full of fuel, and like all of these other elements. And so it becomes this broader knowledge problem. And on top of that too, I probably referred to truck as some jargon that we use inside, and every organization has their acronyms and their jargon and their specifics around it. And then the very last element too is, depending on what department you're in, that jargon means different things. So like an example that Matthew Miller gave to me that I love and reuse all the time, which is conversion rate. If you're in finance and you say conversion rate, you mean like, currency conversion. If you're in marketing, you probably mean click-through conversion. Okay. So sales conversions, right? So you put all these things together and it's like an agent needs all of that context at different points in their journey and your conversation and what they're trying to do. Maybe it's asynchronous or synchronous, deep thinking or more iterative. And that's the basis of what we want to do with the knowledge engine, is bring together semantics, jargon, your processes, and bring them together both internal to Tableau. I mean, a lot of it's already encoded in your data sources, your workbooks sometimes, and dashboards. There's a lot of interesting semantics and knowledge that's encoded into those. There's some that's in our heads, and so how can we, use time of interacting to be able to make the system more intelligent, asking questions and things like that. And also building in new experiences to bring in, like, how do you have jargon be part of the system? And that's through these concepts that we call business preferences, for example. We can bring in glossaries and ontological concepts. So I think of the knowledge engine really as an ontology that sits above all of those things, including semantics, and with semantics as its foundation. And all of that, the knowledge graph part is an implementation detail. All of it's encoded in the knowledge graph with intelligent retrievers, so that agents, given the context of the conversation, can retrieve out of that graph what it needs to, the minimal amount. It's compacted as possible to be able to figure out what the next correct answer is, or maybe what the next train of thought should be, to make those agents a lot more effective. And I think we're already starting to see a lot of really cool things come out of that. I think, in fact, Project Bongo, which we saw at Devs on Stage, I heard a lot of feedback, should have won, but also there was a lot of cool stuff we saw. So Project Solve was also cool, but putting those concepts together, like Project Bongo is a good example of using a knowledge graph to be able to do so many more things with the data, to be able to come to conclusions a lot faster. I thought that was a really good example of where we want to start taking that knowledge engine. But again, in a very Tableau way, right? Making it easy, making it configurable, making it deploy, and all the things that people have come to love Tableau for.
My only lament is that you can't move all three of those things forward simultaneously.
Yeah, I know, and we're gonna probably all go home and try to figure out how
to do that.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
So, because I think these are all things that we want to do a lot more. And the good news is, along with AI helping with data, AI is also helping our engineers.
Correct.
So hopefully we can start to bring down our cycle times a little bit, have a little bit more frequent releases and those types of things. Those are all in our goals too, so maybe we can.
Okay, so there was one key thing you said that I got confused by. You said
Sorry.
The knowledge engine.
Yes.
Is that separate from the graph?
So the knowledge engine is the name, I would say, of the product, so to speak.
Okay.
Once you lift up the hood of what is in there, there's a knowledge graph in there. So right now it's a bespoke.
The graph is kind of an elemental feature or function within the engine, but there's more to the engine than the graph.
Right. So the engine also, so the graph is really how we store all of that metadata together.
And that's that vector thing.
Yeah. So all the relationships between all of these elements that we were talking about, like how does that jargon relate to my role, relate to the types of semantics that would then be appropriate to query. There's then the retrievers. So like when an agent needs something from the graph, how do we not just spill the whole graph into its context
So systems
window?
architecture, I'm going to have to maybe go through a router or a retriever and queue and get my answer back. And so that all of those pieces
all part of the
engine.
That's right. And then on top of that too, advanced insights. So for things like proactive analytics, something that's kind of hard to demo because it shows up as a Slack message or an email or a Teams message, which is basically, I just did a bunch of analysis overnight for you. And what I determined is like, there is an event that looks very similar to an event that has happened 2 times before and has caused this outcome. Here's the actions that you took last time. I want to raise this to you because you didn't actually have a metric that you were following to indicate, like to show you in the morning that this was going to happen. So I made this metric for you. Here's all the analysis. I recommend you take these actions, but here's everything that you need to go
consider
verify
it first.
Yeah, consider it, and here's, ask me a bunch of questions as an agent. Here's the team of people that maybe can help validate that we're seeing the same type of event. All of those types of things, like that's the other part of the engine is how do you use the engine? So it's kind of an element of how do we build it, the graph, how do you manage it as a user, and that's all the UI elements and business preferences and testability and observability, that command center that we talked about. And then there's all the ways that we can reduce that time from insight to action to as close to zero as possible. That's what we hope we can achieve with knowledge.
Yeah, got it. And as you mentioned at the top, that's been the mission since the beginning. Is to shrink that to zero.
That's right. Yeah. No, I mean, that's Tableau's mission. The one thing I love about Tableau is our mission has literally never changed since the moment we published it. It's to help people see and understand data. I don't foresee it ever changing, and it's Tableau's original invention was a stepwise improvement to being able to see and understand data from more people, democratize data access to so many more people because of how intuitive the product is. My belief, I think our shared belief, is AI is that next big step. We've had a lot of little steps, between those two times. The AI can be the next big step, and there's, I would say, nobody's really cracked the nut, so to speak.
The wind is blowing in all directions.
And so, but we believe pretty firmly, and we've been proving out internally that knowledge engine is going to be a core piece of it. And then back to our original question is, and then exposing that in a way that's composable. It can be part of MCP. It can be part of other agent architectures. It can be part of like agent graphs, so that agents can interact with it and retrieve it all. All be based on the knowledge engine, so you can have analytics and agents working together with people, with all of this knowledge together, right? So
in a secure way, with
governance. Absolutely, yeah. No, and it's an important, very important.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Trevor. I mean, this has been astounding. I'm especially rewarded by the recent knowledge engine stuff because that just unpacked a whole new thing that I wasn't yet familiar with. But really appreciate the tour de force of your perspective on where Tableau is today.
No, I appreciate the time and just inviting me to do this, and hopefully this was helpful to many more people too.
Yeah, sure was.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Bye, guys.
Everybody.
It's time for action.
It's time for